Welcome to the Second Press podcast, a wine-ish podcast hosted by Brad Horn and Dan Kirby.
I'm from Romagna, so back in the day, this is where the rebels were. And the deal of the Duke of Tuscany was to kill as many of us as possible, because we were troublemakers.
What's changed, Nelson?
Nothing. Absolutely. The Tuscans are not trying to kill me yet.
Hi, Dan. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. How are you?
Good. Episode
14.
14. Yes. Well done, mate.
Yeah.
Thanks for remembering. At least someone's on the ball.
I try. I'm the one editing it, so my what is it? My meticulous audio file storage system, so that I know what episode we're putting out when. Apparently, it all runs off a stupid Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, I was just about to say, you sure it's not just an Excel spreadsheet?
That's how organised we are, mate.
Should we fly into the news?
Yeah, go for it. What's in the news, mate?
Why Gen Z chilling red wine is socially acceptable in the heat wave, especially. Grace Dean writes on the BBC. Some more wine news in the BBC, which is great.
I think this is great that it's sort of broached into mainstream media, but interesting that it's written through the lens of Gen Z, because I think anyone start drinking chilled red wines. At the Vineyard, we serve our red wines cold all the time, have been doing it for ages. So I don't know whether it's just the trend of drinking red wine slightly chilled has seeped in, and there's still maybe a bit more resistance to it from the older generations. But you and me, we've had glasses of red wine cold for ages, yeah?
Absolutely, and everyone I know does it. I think it's what's done.
Yeah.
And I want to segue a little bit. David Beckham was drinking red wine at the World Cup, so...
Yeah, he got some stick for that, didn't he?
He did, but hopefully it was chilled. I think it was in Miami, so it must have been chilled.
It must have been. He's not going to drink... Well, actually, Beckham's probably drinking like bloody Latour or Lafite or something. A couple of ice cubes in there.
I heard from another source that he knows his wine, and someone's one of his buyers and he knows stuff about wine. He buys good stuff, so maybe actually he was drinking something really good, and he knows about serving temperature, and he knows it.
Maybe he's clued up. He's clued up enough to serve it chilled if you're in a hot country.
Absolutely.
Anyway, the article in the BBC was clearly written for people that weren't necessarily into wine. It was just, hey, why don't you have a little taste of red wine cold? It's interesting. A little bit of sort of really boring service temperature. I'll just put it in the fridge for 20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
But interesting that people are picking up on it. I love it. I love red wine cold. Great.
Me too. Next one. UK Sommelier of the Year 2026 awarded to Emma Denney. This was in Harper's, and Oliver Catchpole wrote the article.
We need a weekly article from Oliver. But this is a callback to a couple of episodes ago with Christelle Guibert. Because this is her gig now, isn't it? So the UK Sommelier Awards, grueling. 2 days worth of bloody tastings and theory and all sorts of stuff on stage. And I think Emma said, in the article, she won best blind tasting and best theory or something. So she fucking smashed it.
She smashed it. Well done, Emma.
Which is cool. Well done. And she's head of wine where?
Claridge's.
Yeah.
She's at Claridge's.
Yeah.
So incredible som. Really pleased for her. I think she finished 5th last year. So, yeah, really, really great for her to go out and get the win.
Amazing stuff.
Awesome. And the last one is we are going to drinks retailing news. New Gen has bought Bancroft. So a bit tradey for you guys if you don't know about the trade, but New Gen, an importer, bought another importer, Bancroft.
So yeah, the wines that I work for, Flint Vineyard, we're distributed by Bancroft, and I've known the guys for a while. And interestingly, let's get a bit nerdy for a bit. When FMV, which was the trade wholesale bit of Berry Brothers a few years ago, when FMV kind of disbanded, a lot of the producers and I think a couple of the members of staff jumped from FMV to Bancroft.
Okay.
And then Bancroft have been trying to grow a bit for the last few years. And so I know the MD fairly well, Damien. He's a really good guy, really switched on. And I think they've been sort of under the radar, up for sale for a couple of years, or just trying to put the feelers out about something. And so this feels like quite a nice fit actually for New Gen, because New Gen have got a relatively small portfolio of some really amazing producers. And Bancroft have quite a big portfolio. So I think I think it could be quite a good thing.
Yeah, and I'm the other side. I know a lot of the new gen guys, and I love their producers. I love what they do. So I think actually, if we both know either side, I think the fit could be pretty good. And I've sort of reached out to new gen, so I might get a few quotes later on about what's going on.
Oh, cool, nice. I'll do the same with the guys at Bancroft, and we can maybe come back to this story. Is it because there's bound to be there always is a bit of rationalization. They'll take a look at what producers are what and which accounts are where. But by all accounts, they're just going to kind of carry on as is for a bit and then slowly merge together, I imagine.
And that article was in Drinks Retailing, guys. Lizzie wrote that. Okay.
Yeah, cool. And then we're still getting a good chunk of our news from the Wine Industry Digest, which is you can sign up for in your mailing list. And it just pulls together a whole bunch of articles from across the wine industry each week, and it sort of pings it into your email inbox. That's where we pick up a lot of our news from. Yeah.
To be honest, I think every one of these from me was from that. I'll give the writer a shout out. So yes. So let's go to the episode, mate. Who's on this week?
This week, we have got a really long episode because the interview guest is a good friend of ours, Nelson Pari. And Nelson, you will know him from his Barolo tastings at 67 or being a somm at 67 or from working for Swig and a few other people. He's an industry guy. And we were chatting to him for about 45 minutes, nearly an hour, I think, actually. And when I was editing it, going through the podcast, there's so much good stuff. Nelson, the conversation was really interesting. I learned a lot about Nelson. And so me and Brad have decided to just leave this episode pretty much unedited. So it's like a 45-minute interview with Nelson. So
if you're on the beach, on your summer holiday, put it on 45 minutes, have a beer, have a glass of wine, chilled red, hopefully, and enjoy. Nelson was great. Some great stories as well, guys. Some of his stories before wine are absolutely fantastic. So enjoy.
Yeah, enjoy this one.
Nelson, thank you so much for joining me and Dan on the Second Press podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for it's great to see you guys.
Obviously, wine trade professional, sommelier, buyer, educator, master of wine student, lots of things. You've got lots of hats, Nelson.
Yeah, too many.
Yeah, Nelson, where do you want to start with all that? We've got so many questions for you, mate.
Yeah. Can we start at the beginning? Because obviously, we're going to talk guitars at the beginning, Dan, not the end. But Nelson, also, you are a classically trained guitarist.
I own a Master of Music, so I'm an M.Mus. So my name should be Nelson Pari M.Mus. And from Trinity Laban. I've been studying jazz for a long time. So I know. So when I joined 67 Pall Mall, one of the greatest things is that I knew many people because I was playing at Ronnie's, at the Vortex, and many people were there, or like Jazz After Dark and all these iconic places, of the London Jazz, Pista Express, Soho.
Were you into wine at the same time?
No. So what happened was that I was playing in this band called Brigitte Aphrodite that was opening for Kate Nash at the time. It was like a few years. It was a few years after she did Foundations. So what happened is that then she had like she had like a punk tune that went really massive, and through all my some of my friends were playing for her, and the guitarist of Kate Nash, her dad there was a sommelier. So I met him in a wedding, and we started talking about wines. And I always drank wines when I was around playing because you're going to play in a place. Let's say I go to play at Ronnie's. They're not going to give you free old fashioned, which is what I really wanted. But they're going to give you a glass of wine or stuff like that. So I started drinking wine when it was a gig.
Is that because they didn't want you to be too drunk so you couldn't play?
Pretty much. Well, that could be an advantage, to be honest, most times. But it's just because the cost will be too much. So it's better wine than a cocktail, And what happened is that I started drinking wines, but I had no idea what I was doing. You get into wine generally, all of us. We got into wine really quickly. You get the buzz right away. And then and there's a moment in which you never come back. So it was happening the same. So I was with this guy called Flavio Buratto, and I drank wine with him for the first time, and he was trying to explain to me acidity, tannins, and I was like, oh, I want to do that.
And you did that, and you do that,
And I did that.
and then obviously that segue into moving to 67. How did you do that, and how quickly did that happen?
It happened pretty quickly. So I was gigging every day, apart from, I think, Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't remember which day precisely. So because I couldn't stay put, I was like, I need to do something on Tuesday because I'm playing every other night and I cannot find a gig on Tuesday. It was impossible for me to gig on Tuesday. I don't know what happened then. But so I went to work at Humble Grape.
Yeah.
In Battersea. Yeah. And at the time, Desiree Russo was the wine director, and now she's a Skurnik in New York. And what happened was that I didn't like the apron. I hated the apron. So I used to come and work with the suit. And I was like, I'm keeping this. And that's it. That's the only way you're going to keep me
I don't
here.
want the apron. Just give me a suit.
Yeah, I'm not wearing
I just didn't like it. Then I started appreciating it at 67, to be honest. But I was cocky back in the day. And what happened was that I was making sales because, I didn't know what I was doing. So I was really ballsy when it came to sell stuff. And what happened was that at a certain time, we changed all the managers. And what happened was that Desiree was like, you're going to receive an email tomorrow. And I opened my email, and Desiree suggested me to Terry Candilis at the time. So I went to 67. Like, imagine, zero idea what I was doing. Okay, like I had my WCT level 3. I was studying, but compared to those guys were like the apex of the wine world, right? And imagine, like, because this is what happened back in the day at 67. You came in, and everyone is super nice, and then boom, 150 questions to reply, and I remember still a couple of them, which was like they were giving you some Premier Cruise, and they were just like, or Chablis. It was like, okay, can you please divide them on the banks of the River Seine? Or another question was, what is the most famous Marsanne from Australia? And those were the questions.
Amazing.
And I was like, what the fuck is this? And I remember when I met Ronan and Terry, they were really clear that I wasn't at the level. But what they said, like, look, you're a musician. If you come here, you will have to stop doing that. And at the time, I was doing quite well. I just finished my master's. I was doing a bit of gigs with a few singers from The Voice at the time. So basically, and so money were starting coming in for the first time in my life. And I was like, I'm going to just drop 10 years. 10 years of literally, like, from the bottom. Like I was struggling so much. And because, when you're a musician, this is how you live. You basically, at a certain point, somebody in your house will be like, especially if you're all musicians, will start posing the hard question, which is, how are we going to pay rent? And we just look at each other and say, but we're going to find a way 3 days before the deadline somehow. And basically what I did is that I said, okay, I'm just going to drop music to come here to work at 67 as a junior som.
Wow. And then, as you said, you literally were at that point where music was going okay. You were making money, you were paying the rent. All your roommates were like, don't do it. We're paying the rent. We haven't got to worry.
It was crazy.
Like, bye guys, I'm going to be a som now. Yeah.
But can you imagine, like, because the funny thing where the chats that I had to call all the guys, hey, I'm not coming to play at Ronnie's. I'm not coming to play at 6. Like, I basically had to drop slowly all the gigs. So that was tough, man. Because, like, it was everything that I dreamed of.
Yeah.
And I just traded in to be a junior som. So I was like, what the fuck am I doing?
Someone give you that glass of wine and you got the bug and you were away.
Just literally just drop everything. Like, well, I've got the wine bug, like everything else goes out the window, and I'll go and work as a junior som at 67.
But it's like the academics also, I just passed my master's. Yeah. And I was just like, if I think about the arrangement exams, they were terrifying, like between the theory exam of the MW and the old, like, arrangement, man, those are really similar exam in my mind.
Do you think that shows you something about your character, mate? I've done all that. That's easy. I'm done. I need something else now.
I'll get to the top of the wine game now.
No, it's just that, like in music is really simple, because what happens is that if you're not at the top of the game, you don't get the gigs. It's really, the wine world gives you a lot of breath because there are many things. But music is really rough. And also, I lived the passage of music. I'll give you the story for me of what was the passage of music, because I saw it one day and it was never the same. I remember one day at school, I was at the ACM in Guildford, and every day, every week, let's say, there used to be like a big dog coming, Chad Smith is coming, the guy Snarky Puppy came one day. And then what happened is that one day we knew that Yannick Guitarist was in school, and we were like, whoa, he was the biggest bass player at the time. He was playing in New York with all the greats. And then he came at school with no bass. And he wrote a book called You're a Musician, Now What? And it was him talking about Facebook, promoting your music on Facebook using Bandcamp. And for us, it was like incredible, because it signified a really strong differences. And I think the wine trade will really, how can I say, learn a lot from what I learned in those courses. Because when I was studying, especially music business, I remember the first lesson we had like Jim Jomoa, which I think it was a big producer from Jay-Z, a lot of people in America. And his lessons were as simple as that. One thing that he used to say to us is like, okay, what kind of thing do you want to do? I want to be a jazz musician. Okay, you need to write down in front of the whole class 20 labels of jazz all over the world. And I could barely say 3. And what he said to me is like, you believe you're a Cristiano Ronaldo and you don't know the names of the football teams. How many producers of wine out there barely know the name of one top Michelin star restaurant all over the world? It's crazy when you think about it.
From that to now, to joining 67 at the bottom, working your way to what you're doing now, like educator, buyer. You also like work with some of the best regions in Italy and showcase their wines. How did that journey happen? Obviously, you can see you've got passion, but it's not just, can't just be passion.
I think that I've never been given anything for free. Like I'm never the guy that gets the call. There are two type of people in life. The people that everybody wants and gets the call, and the one that got a 0 call. It's as simple as that. Anyway, I think that every time I saw something, I'm like, can I do this on my own? At a certain point, you realize there's not really, every place has a huge compromise that you need to pay. Every single place. If you have your place, there's no compromise. And that's the first thing. The second thing is that I always want to be the most stupid person in the room. If you see things that I'm doing,
It can't be true. We've been in a room together.
Yeah.
Believe me, that even especially in that case, there's a ton of like incredible people in the wine trade, and there's a lot of people that knows how to do specific stuff. So I'm always, if you see all my projects, rarely I'm at the level of the other people within those projects. Kind of almost never. So that's my thing. So I'm surrounded by people in wine that Mike Best makes me feel really stupid every single time that I speak with him. And believe me, he's really refreshing.
Well, that's a good segue, Nelson, because obviously you've got a podcast as well with Mike Best MW, who is a friend of mine as well. We go and watch the cricket together, and he is super smart. So
he was the youngest MW when he passed.
Yes, he was.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Didn't he put his award in the toilet?
That I don't know.
Yeah, I interviewed him a few years ago, and it's in his downstairs toilet. Mike, if you're listening, please confirm that or deny.
I'm going to triple check after all this. But like at the end, the thing that I've learned from Mike is grit. Like Mike is the impersonation of grit. And there's another thing that sometimes I like people that, Mike is not great in the world of wine. Mike is great to everything, in the way that he watches cricket, in the way that he talks about the Travels of Shackleton, like the books that he reads. So it's good because there's a lot of things that you can learn from a person that has a profound perspective on, like, he completely owns his niche, as a human being. Because like I think that I own a wine niche pretty confidently. I don't know if I own a niche as a human being. He does. And that's what makes me, this is what is fascinating. I'll give you an idea. So when we do the podcast.
What's the podcast called, Nelson? Give it a plug, please.
Yes, absolutely. It's called One Bottle, 3 Questions. The idea of the podcast is that many podcasts about wine, they tend to be overly descriptive in things. You know, when you talk with a winemaker, this is the right way to do them.
Very PC there, mate. Well done.
No, what we want to do is like, okay, this is the guy. 3 questions. What do you do here? Done. Okay, next one. Done. But the way that we do it is that I basically have a list of ideas and I need to do the checkbox. And this is my job. Mike's job is that Mike is obsessed. There's an historical interview with Gorbachev, with this journalist that was basically, it was there. He was like supposed to do an hour. The PR guy goes to him and he said like, I'm really sorry. You will only have 5 minutes with the president. And the guy came into the room and he said, what was the most important lesson that your father taught you? The question has so much depth that Gorbachev gave me extra minutes. And so if I'm looking to a more student approach, Mike is always looking at, can we make this with depth? And so we're trying to balance each other. But there's a lot of people that listen to wine podcasts, and this is an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing.
The number of podcasts out there is pretty amazing. And I think most of the guests that we've had on the show so far have either been on a lot recently or have one of their own. And so I think it's just becoming another medium for people to have a longer form place to chat about stuff. And I think we're noticing already most of the audience is people within the wine world. It's not casual consumers listening to this podcast. It's people on the periphery of the wine trade. They might work in restaurants or bars or pubs or buying or marketing. And I think that's just like a good thing for the biz, is to have a nicer way of having longer form chats that people can listen to. It's more engaging than like 30-second brain rot.
And you'll be surprised on how many people are not from the wine trade. So you will see a lot of people that will listen to your podcast, guys, that are just wine lovers. And you know what also is the thing? I don't believe it's a world of competition either. It's really more like economics in a way. You know, the goal eventually is for everyone to be rich, in a sense. You know, like it's not a zero-sum game. There could be thousands of podcasts, and still, if you have a good idea and you have good guests, and you guys are cool. I know you for a long time. Unfortunately for you, but you're doing a good thing.
That was coming.
I want to talk about, obviously, you judging now for the Cantor World Wine Awards, and that's happening now. So how does judging as well very differ from working at 67 and other things you do? How do you go about judging if people didn't know the judging format?
So the judging is a really weird thing. I don't see judging as a category. I see evaluating wines as a category. This is my case, which is not the case of many people, because I take it as a two-way thing. One, I'm there to also network, see the guys, enjoy spending time with the trade. The other side, which is a bit more, it is weird, but on the same level, is that whatever you judge in your life, there's your name in it. And I take that shit really seriously. So everybody, I'll just give you an idea. I was at the IWSC the other day, and Victoria Mason was like doing the intro, and was like, well, you're gonna have at your table people that are really opinionated, and a lot of people just turn on to me. And I'm just like, and I mean, fair. But I take it really seriously, especially because when you are a buyer, if you score a wine, people are going to come on to you and be like, oh, but you gave me that score. Why are you not buying my wine? And you know what is the thing? They are correct. So I sometimes I'm overly harsh. And I'm overly harsh with Italy in particular. Every time I get to a gold medal, I'm like, I need to make sure that if I will be outside in a restaurant, I will buy this bottle gladly. So for example, last year, I remember at IWSC, I gave a pretty high silver, so like about 94 points or something like that, to one of the single vineyard Pinot Nero from Cavit, from the Co-op. So I bought a case for myself. It's a great wine. The price is imported by Butino, where Mike Best works. So that was easy. No it was blind, so it was nothing to do with it. And I remember we were drinking a lot of Verdicchios, and last year at the Cantor we had a Verdicchio from Borgo Paianeto that was really spectacular. So I managed to get a couple mags from my friends, and so I try every time that I go to the Cantor Awards, IWSC. I try to buy those wines, because it seems that we're just there for fun. I want to be, or if I have a thing with friends or restaurants, I try to promote those wines. For me, is a really important thing.
I love that, Nelson, but you get to see them before, so you can buy all the wines before we know the score. So come on, mate, help us out. Give us a chance.
Not that a score changes anything, to be honest.
No.
So it's a thing.
But before we move on to you again, mate, some fun questions. I want to ask you about the Barolo tastings and the Bulgari tastings you do at 67. And they've really come a long way. And I've met you there a few times. I've done a few interviews with you, and they are great, sort of pigeonholing and focusing into amazing regions. How do you go about those, and how have they expanded? Because they have got bigger year on year.
Yeah. So I have to be honest. I don't know how many of you have seen the book On Liberty by John Stuart Mill. The greatest thing about that book is that as soon as you open, the first tagline is about the fact that On Liberty by John Stuart Mill was actually influenced by his wife. So it's he actually recognized that on the opening of the book. The same thing applies here. So literally, what happened is that I think we became a bit more famous in the trade because and with consumers and members at Pall Mall because of our single vineyards barolo tasting. But that was actually an idea that my girlfriend Ilaria was really pushing us to do. At the time, at 67, the sommeliers were doing the masterclasses. And, you do the Riesling masterclass, the Cabernet Sauvignon masterclass, a more introductory kind of thing. But then, at a certain point, some of my colleagues at the time, they were starting doing some really niche things. They were so cool. I remember people doing Czech Republic wines, and then somebody was doing Napa, and people were starting to specialize on things. And we then see how much powerful it was on the floor, because when you were doing events, people treated you completely differently, because you were not an authority. You're still a server, which is a really important thing that really builds the character in life, being a server. And actually there's a way that we say in my region in Italy, there is a sentence that says se non servi non servi, because in Italy serve means also have two meanings. One is to serve someone, and one is to be useful. So if you don't serve, you're not useful to anyone. And so me and Federico, we really wanted to do something together. For one reason, we were seen at Pall Mall as a bit of the guys that were never going to make it, in a way. Because we were surrounded by stars. Everybody there was a star. I could tell that many people were looking at us from our colleagues, being like, we were really liked. But many were like, yeah, these guys are the funny guys, the pizza mandolino guys, which is something that I hate, in a way.
The Mario Bros.
Yeah, the Mario Bros. Yeah, exactly. And so we went to Barolo, and we found out that we were pretty, I wouldn't say smart, but we had some keys, because we spent years and years and years emptying spittoons at Jasper Morris and Jane Anson masterclasses. And we were just like, why on earth nobody's talking in this way about Italy? Because if you look at the history of critics of Italy, nobody's doing anything in depth, really. And I talk about critics. Or if there are books that are on details, they're way too overcomplicated. There's nothing in between. What Jasper and Jane were doing, nobody was doing it. So there was a place for us. And the Barolo Masterclass is still the most sold event in the history of Pall Mall. We've done around 7 replies or something like that. We did it 7 times, all sold out. It was pretty crazy. With the online version during COVID, had over 300 people or something. It was crazy. It was proper crazy. And but the thing was that, this is the thing, people want to drink Italian wines, but the Italians are overcomplicating it just because they think that it's cool. Or, this is what I used to say, imagine if the Italians were trying to make the laws of the French. you know what I mean. Everybody knows what I mean. So it's not really something sustainable in the long run. And in fact, I like the fact that I spend a lot of time with you guys. So there's the funny thing is that here I'm really an Italian, but in Italy I have a lot of things very British in the way that
you're a British Italian, mate. Now,
yeah, I have a lot of things like that. Like if somebody is skipping the line, I start to get really pissed off. You know what I mean?
That's the most British thing.
That's how
in
you
the
know,
world.
mate.
Yeah,
That's how you know.
Okay, I'll tell you when I realized that I was integrating into the culture. I remember one day. I remember these tourists where I was in Oxford Circus, and you know when people are going to the oyster car machine, but they don't put their oyster out. So you have to wait in line for people just to, I'm in front of the machine. I put the oyster out and it's like, no, man, you need to prepare it. You know, as soon as you're down the stairs, oyster card in hand, you know? So and then I was like, oh.
Got a few more questions. What Italian bottle, if it was your last bottle of wine, what would it be?
Specifically Italian. If you had to pick one.
It's really tough. It's really tough because
that's why we asked it.
So you know why? Because there are many answers that I could
that you should give or could give.
That I should give. So I'm gonna try to give them all. I'll tell you what is the first thing that came into my mind.
Yes, that's what we want.
But here's the thing: he's not a producer that I will generally say, "Oh, I'm going to drink it all the time," or that I have like a huge story with it. I think one of the top vintages from Soldera, like 2001 Soldera, probably is the first thing that came into my mind. But that's the thing: it's not a wine that really have a particular affection to it. But I do believe, like there are certain wines in Italy that you drink and you just like, these guys are 20 years in the future. And, I recently drank Poggio di Sotto 15. And, 15 was still a year in which people were like, oh, yeah, we're gonna squeeze everything in those grapes, mate. And still, it felt like a Pinot Noir with character, with Italian character, And for me, that's a visionary trait, and I think that thing has got lost in a way. Like Italy sometimes struggles to see its champions because we are sometimes more related to fashion, and also we are a region that is really connected to is always customer first. The French have a really specific way because they make wines first and foremost for themselves, and then the audience arrives. It's a thing. I'm going to do another analogy. There's an interview with Steven Wilson, which is probably one of my favorite guitarists of all time, from Porcupine Tree. Now he does his own thing. And in an interview, he really explained one thing, that there are two different kinds of music. There are the music that is made for people to listen to, and there's the music that I made because I need to make it. And that's pretty much the difference. If you think about like most of the Brunello or Barolo produced was just made for the American market. That was it. It's literally most of the stories of Italy were like poor people that saw a glimpse of light of earn a decent living for themselves. And I do completely understand also our stories, are completely different. We had mezzadria, so it's sharecropping. So the stories are completely different. We're way, way more bonkers, our stories. We're more, I would say, survival based sometimes. But that also has the downside that we are easily bought in our mind. So even if you still see today, the wine is becoming fashion more and more. But the Italian have always been fashion. So when you see these legendary figures like Rinaldi, Soldera, these guys were making wines for themselves. Grabner is probably the epitome of like, imagine you're the greatest white wine winemaker of Italy. He's selling the greatest white of Italy. And these guys show up with an amphora 7 years in oak. Like, you need, like, come on. And also there are many people in the trade that really understood the genius of these people. So, great respect.
I'm going to add a question. a region we should be looking at in Italy that we're not?
Okay.
Really not.
Okay, so I have one. I'm a bit involved in this because it's really close to my place. My favorite place right now for Italy is a place called Modigliana. It's really hard to pronounce because it's the one of those places in Italy that have the GL, so you will call it Modigliana. So the story is that Modigliana used to be part of Tuscany. So Tuscany used to be massive. I'm from Romagna, so back in the day, this is where the rebels were. And the deal of the Duke of Tuscany was to kill as many of us as possible. Because we were troublemakers. And so
What's
what
changed,
happened
Nelson?
nothing. Absolutely. The Tuscans are not trying to kill me yet. And so what happened was that there was a part of my region called La Romagna Toscana, so the property of Tuscany. And one of those parts were Modigliana. Actually, Modigliana was still there. It was actually a part of interest in the Second World War as well. So there's a lot of story there. But what happened is that this place should be, technically, one of the last villages of Chianti. But because it was taken off, it's been untouched. So most of the vineyards are completely surrounded by the forest. And you are in the northernest place where you grow Sangiovese in Italy. What happened there is that you have a couple of guys there. First of all, you have Francesco Bordini, which I believe to be the greatest agronomist living today in Italy. And many people talks about the cellar all the time. Nobody talks about the vineyard. And still this is a thing that everybody does. Now everybody talks about the vineyard, but apart from Jamie Good, not many people talk about the guys that are working in the vineyard. He's always the head winemaker that gets interviewed. And the thing about Francesco is that really he changed the game for Sangiovese on a really specific thing. The history of Sangiovese is based on a thing called La Gambelliana, which is what Gambelli used to do, So it's like big oak, VA, it's that sort of like, this is a Cetobacter. I don't want to marry him, but maybe we can have a one-night stand. You know what I mean? But Francesco is on the other side. He's on the reductive side. And, Sangiovese is a beach already in oak. Can you imagine in concrete? So he's really bringing that thing. Even if historically was made there, he's the first guy that is really putting like the technique precisely. So you have a place. And what makes this place famous is that there was this guy called Giorgio Melandri, was one of the guys from Il Gambero Rosso. And he had an intuition by talking with the guys of the co-op there. And they were noticing how masts were fermenting when they were coming from different parts, different valleys from this place. So if you ask me today, the two places that can do that Burgundy game will be still Barolo for Nebbiolo. But for Sangiovese, forget Chianti, forget Brunello, Modigliana is the only one that can do parcel to parcel, near perfect. If you have one bottle that I would suggest, I'll suggest a couple. Villa Papiano is surely, I would say Le Papesse is pretty affordable. And if you can, I think is now on Wine Society. There's a Mutigliana, I Ronchi Sparsi. So those are surely Mutigliana and Villa Papiano are two wineries to follow. And the good old Luigi Casanova that started a career in music with me. We moved together in the UK. Well, and now he's one of the Somms at 67 and he's going to launch his wine in Modigliana next year. So that's another thing that I will...
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So that's it.
I've got one more, Nelson.
Let's go.
When you're not drinking wine, what are you doing, mate? You might say music, but probably outside of music. What do you get up to?
Outside of music?
Yeah. And wine.
Okay. So my biggest passion...
Wow.
Is video games.
Beyond wine and beyond music is video games.
Yeah, so because you know what it is that I know...
I was not expecting that.
So I'll tell you why. Because it's the only art form in which I still feel incredibly stupid. I'll give you an idea. I've studied a lot of cinema when I was a kid. So I have an idea of how photography works, how, like line and composition of an image works. I've been drowning myself in Kubrick and Lynch way before it was the right time, to be honest. But I kind of think that I understand a bit of wine and I do understand music really well. Still, I really struggle in understanding game design. So by not understanding it really well, I can really get into the zone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because every time you do something that you know, the possibility of you getting bored by it, it's insane. Because you know how difficult it is. Like the more you know, the more you don't know. Fuck. Sometimes like, you're studying wine or I'm studying music. And at a certain point, I'm like, this is so big that I should just drop it. And this thing is constantly in my mind. But I'm not coding video games. I'm not spending time on Blender making character designs. So I can really zone in for hours.
And what's your favorite game? As any gamers listening.
Okay, I can waste hours on many things, first of all. But the best game that I think that if somebody will say, okay, what is the greatest game that you played overall, is a game called Nier Automata. And is a specific weird game made by a guy called Yoko Taro, which I believe to be one of the greatest director after Hideo Kojima of Metal Gear Solid. And what the story is basically the same story that we heard all the time. So the Earth was full of robots, AI, they took over. It's basically a spin-off on Neon Genesis Evangelion, if you've ever seen one of the greatest anime of ever made. But it's a sort of a more philosophical spin-off. And what happened is that like you play the same story, but every time you push a new game plus, you're basically playing another character. So you just see this thing through many ways, and every New Game Plus is seen through the view of a particular philosopher of the past, and he's a mind fuck, man. So that's a game. I believe there are a few video games. Like when you see 2001: A Space Odyssey, when you see Barry Lyndon, when you see, for example, Mulholland Drive, you understand that you're somehow closer to heart. There are certain games like Metal Gear Solid 2, Nier Automata, where you're like, wow, you're really close to something here that is just great human beings doing amazing things. So one thing that I always say, sometimes, and I think the same about like reviews, when you read, for example, one of the greatest things I've ever read in my life is Lester Banks' review of Astral Weeks by Van Morrison. And there are these things in which are like, oh my God, this is so well written that he actually is way better than Astral Weeks by Van Morrison. Like this review is better than the album. How is it possible? So there are many people doing amazing things. So what I'm trying to do, usually in anything, in music, in wine, in video games, is just to cut as much unexpensive crap out of my way.
Nelson, I could honestly keep talking to you for hours. And we knew we had so many questions. We probably hit half of them. So probably next season or season, we have to get you on again. Because honestly, mate, and obviously, and I've learned more about you. And we are friends and we know each other. But I didn't know you're a keen gamer as well. You must have no time on your hands. You do so much.
No. It is the only thing that so this is what I do, is that I always try to plan everything. So I sat down every month or two and I write down on a piece of paper everything that I do. The magazine in Italy, the podcast with Mike Best, the ENW, the buying job and everything. So I try to see the masterclasses at Pall Mall. For example, last year I went with Veritas in America. And so everything that I do, I just try to write everything. And I'm like, where am I here? Like in which place am I? And luckily, I do things with other people that are, again, they're really, we're helping each other out. So it's really, when you are in a team like you guys are doing, which is a perfect choice, is way easier.
Thanks, mate. And Danny is the perfect teammate for this.
I don't know. You two are smart cookies.
I've just been sitting listening to you, Nelson, for the last ages. It's just been an eye-opener. It's been amazing to see how busy you are, how creative you are, how passionate you are about every single thing you touch is all in. I don't imagine you do anything where I might just have a crack at that for no reason. If you're going to do it, you're going to actually fucking crack on with it.
Yeah.
Nelson, thank you so much, mate.
Yeah, we have
pleasure, guys. Fantastic. Amazing, guys.
That was a long one, Dan, but it was funny. Some of Nelson's stories. Playing at Ronnie Scott's. He was a very good musician, or is a very good musician.
Yeah, and just making the decision to slowly drop music in favour of going to work as a somm, and then learning about all the wines of Italy, and then now judging some of the Italian wines, and just how passionate he is about everything he does.
Yeah.
Fantastic interview, and I hope you learn a lot about Nelson. from that one because we certainly did.
Absolutely. And what have you been up to, mate?
Busy day, busy week at the vineyard for the last couple of weeks. Had quite a few people like coming to visit, so like lots of trade customers coming to visit. So we had just got our wines listed in all the Masala zone places in town.
Nice.
So that's like posh, cool, like fast, casual Indian stuff. And so all those guys, they all came to the vineyard last week. So been like super busy doing all sorts of stuff, but mostly vineyard and people coming to say hello and show the wines and labeling and sort of functional stuff. You know, that actually saying all that today, I've been in the garden drinking beer and making pizza. So, you know, you got to take the rough with the smooth, mate.
Pretty good day for you, mate.
Yeah, pretty good day. I sat up and watched England get kicked out of the World Cup as well because I thought, like, you know, you watch all the World Cup stuff. I thought solidarity by the time we get to the semi-finals, then we fucking lost. So, you know, that'll be that.
But we did win last night in the third and fourth playoff, and I'm gonna drink this with the final. Thanks to the guys at Balfour, got me a bottle, so I'm gonna drink this tonight with the final.
Love that. Pop it open,
enjoy,
mate.
and just wish and hoped England were there, but not to be.
Yeah, we're recording this like half an hour before the final, so we don't know the result yet.
No, we haven't got that DeLorean yet, Dan. We still haven't got it.
No, we still need to get the DeLorean. What else have you been up to, mate?
Busy work, all the jobs. Wine Time London as well. Did a few sort of tastings of a few wines. They're coming over this week. I'm on holiday next week as well, guys. So that's why we're doing this a bit earlier. Been busy trying some really good wine. Some really good wine. And there's some fun bits in the work side of it coming soon, but I can't give too much away. There's some fun
you're being
bits.
coy. You're being
coy.
Yeah,
before we go as well, mate, I want to give, not a shout out, but Sam Neill, founder of Two Paddocks Vineyard in New Zealand and Jurassic Park, and wonderful actor, passed away last week. And
absolutely amazing guy.
Yeah.
And like, you know how you see a lot of sort of news articles about people, and like it's so tricky to feel so connected to someone you've never like properly met. But his wines are amazing, and I was really sad about this one.
Yeah, me too. I was lucky enough to be on a Zoom tasting during COVID with him, and he sort of just like lit up the tasting and lit up the Zoom call, and just just a wonderful guy, a great energy, a supporter of New Zealand like wildlife and everything and the land, and yeah, really sad to hear. And as you said, his wines were absolutely outstanding. He wasn't making like rubbish kit. This stuff was some of the best stuff coming out of NZ.
So yeah, that's a real sad one.
Yeah, I don't want to finish on a downer, but I wanted to talk about it, mate.
Yeah, what have we got to finish on that's an upper, mate? Anything this week?
England won yesterday. Also, I had someone come up to me at the Wine Society AGM, and she was a binger.
Love the bingers.
So I really appreciate that. Magda come up to me and said, "Brad, love you and Dan on the podcast. I know you're not doing that today, but we really love it." I know. Basically, when someone says I'm a binger, I know they're listening.
Love it. We know what they mean.
Yeah.
If you're a binger, like, just tell us. You have to remember to tell us you're a binger.
Just come up and say, I'm a binger, and we get it.
And then finally, one little thing is on the comments from last week, we asked people to come up with a name for the Whispering Angel Zero Alcohol. And we had Flying Without Wings as one of them.
Isn't that a song?
That's a Westlife song. So I quite like the idea of that being a collaborative wine with Brian McFadden.
Yep.
You know, from Westlife.
Yeah, I like that.
And then Wendy on Substack, who is my mum.
Yeah, thanks, Mum.
Don't forget, she's popped up before. Mum came up with Sighing Angel, which is quieter than a Whispering Angel. Which, Mum, it's rubbish. So, you know.
Wendy, I like it more than Dan.
All right, well, it's been a long episode. We're probably nearing an hour, so it's probably time to say goodbye.
Yeah, enjoy this one on the beach on holiday, guys. I'm off on holiday now, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
See you later.
Bye, guys.